So the Switch is one of my favourite Nintendo consoles of all time, but there is one thing missing that I really loved on the Wii and the Wii U, and that was the Virtual Console. It was a fantastic way of finding new retro games to play. Thankfully though, over the years, a lot of retro games have been ported to the Switch, either through the eShop, part of physical game collections, or of course more recently with the Nintendo Switch online membership apps as well. So I'm super excited in this video to share with you 15 of the best retro games that you can play on the Nintendo Switch. Let's get started. So in this video I'm not going to be covering any modern remakes of games like the Trials of Mana remake or like the new version of Monster World 4 that came out. I'm only focusing on original games that got original ports to the system. So speaking of Monster World 4, the first game that I'm going to share with you all in this list is the original Monster World 4. And it actually comes bundled with the remake as well, so you get two brilliant games for one. But the original game is one of my favourite platformers of all time, and it's also a game that I found out about thanks to the Wii's Virtual Console. It is such a good game. A lot of people think of it as kind of a prototype version of what Shantae became later on, and that is a really good way of putting it, although it really is a good game in its own right as well. If you've ever played any of the other Wonder Boy games, you'll know exactly what to expect with this one, and I honestly believe that this is the best game in the entire Wonder Boy series. I really love Dragon's Trap, but honestly Monster World 4 just takes the top spot for me. While I was in Japan, I actually tracked down the physical release for the Mega Drive, and it is one of my prized possessions in my retro game collection. If you don't know what the games are like, they're basically side-scrolling platformer/adventure games with dungeons in between. You can kind of think of them as side-scrolling Zelda games in the best sense possible. They're not slow and clunky like Zelda 2 was, they're really fast, really fluid adventure games with kind of a Metroidvania aspect to them as well. I really love the graphics in Monster World 4 as well, they just look absolutely fantastic. And in this port on the Switch in particular, it even includes some really good CRT filters. And these are honestly some of the best that I've ever seen in any retro game re-release. They really do look convincing. So if you like platformers, if you like action adventure games, I highly recommend checking out Monster World 4. The remake's not bad, but I still prefer the original. Now sticking with Sega for number 14, this is an incredible port of Virtua Racer. Of course, Virtua Racer was one of Sega's first ever fully 3D racing games, and its age does show, but they've done an incredible job of porting the game to the Switch. It runs absolutely flawlessly, and the flat shaded polygons actually still hold the test of time really well. It has a really nice graphical style, but most importantly, the game is fun to play. It has really twitchy controls, but they are really responsive, and that makes it such a joy to play and to just try and improve your lap times as you're going around these really famous courses. And unfortunately, I didn't manage to find anyone to play it with online, but this does also support online multiplayer, which is really great, but because the game's been out for a while, I don't really think there's that many people still playing it these days. And as well as that, it also includes local multiplayer with up to 8 players on the same console, which is just insane. Unfortunately, like the online mode, I haven't actually had a chance to try this yet, but I will definitely try and give it a go in the future because it does look really fun. And now for a completely different genre, this one is one of my all-time favourite vertical scrolling shooters, and that is ESP Ra De. So let's get this monitor turned on its side and let's get into one of the best shoot-'em-ups ever made. So ESP Ra De was made by shoot-'em-up legends Cave, and I honestly believe that this is their best game that they've ever made. They've made so many incredible games, but the one I always come back to is ESP Ra De. Like Monster World 4, this is another game that I tracked down the physical version of while I was in Japan. It is such an addictive game and it has amazing graphics and music, but the main reason that I keep coming back to this game over any of the other shoot-'em-ups that I've got is the incredible gameplay. The controls in this game, the amazing emulation work from M2 in this game as well is just simply on another level. Maybe it doesn't look like it on the surface, but there's so many little things about this game that really make it fun to play, like all of the different ways that you can shoot the bullets and the way that you can slow down or speed up, and it is that kind of game where you can just play it over and over again and get just a little bit better each time, and it is super rewarding. I've actually managed to get all the way to the end now, and I'm really proud of that, but even so, I still go back to this game all the time. It's got a great cast of characters. I just love everything about it, I really do. So if you love shoot 'em ups, highly recommend ESP Ra De. Now for one of the collections that I mentioned earlier, and the first one that I want to talk about in this video is the Mega Man Legacy Collection. This is a set of all of the original 8-bit and 16-bit Mega Man games, but I'm just going to pick one for this video, and I think the one that you should start with first of all, this is the Mega Man game that I always recommend to newcomers, and that is Mega Man 5. I love all of the Mega Man games. If you've been around on my channel for a while, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of the series, but Mega Man 5 in particular is one of the original ones that I always go back to because it is the easiest to play through in one sitting, I think. It also has some really fantastic level design, great music, great boss fights, an absolutely brilliant stage before Dr. Wily's castle with some of the best music in the entire series. I just absolutely love the game, and I actually did a full video on this many years ago, so have a look back on my channel if you want to try and find that. But yes, I definitely recommend Mega Man 5 if you want to give the Mega Man series a go. My other favourites in the series are number 4 and number 9, I think, so definitely check those ones out as well. And the good thing is you can play all of them in this one collection on the Switch. And the next game is another Mega Man game that comes from the second part of this collection, the Mega Man X Legacy Collection, and my pick for the game on the X Collection has to go to X2. And up until Mega Man X5, I absolutely love all of the X games, but the one I always go back to is Mega Man X2. And I'm not really sure why that is, because the first one I think is maybe slightly better made, but for some reason I always kind of got more interested in the second one, and I just have really fond memories of playing the second one. I've played it with my friends at uni, we were all sat there in the living room playing through X2, and I honestly think it has some of the best music in the entire Mega Man series, and the music in Mega Man games is such a huge part of the experience. So I definitely recommend you check out both of the Mega Man Legacy collections, but definitely Mega Man 5 and Mega Man X2. So maybe you tried the Mega Man games and they were a little bit too hardcore for you. Well, this next one might be a bit of a palate cleanser. This is an arcade classic called Rodland. And this was actually the first time that the actual official arcade version had a home console port, and it is so much fun. I used to love the game on the original Game Boy, so when this came out on the Switch and I found out that it was an arcade perfect conversion, I just had to get it straight away and I was not disappointed. I absolutely love these small screen platforming puzzle games. I don't really know if there's a proper word for the genre, but this style of arcade puzzle platformer I absolutely love, and Rodland is one of the best examples of that game for me personally. So definitely recommend Rodland if you enjoy those arcade style experiences where you just have to clear out a screen of enemies, collect all of the little different pickups and power-ups that you find throughout the level, and then you get whisked off to the next one and you have to do it all over again. It's such a rewarding experience, and like I said, I absolutely love that genre, and I would love to do a full video just about those arcade style platforming puzzle games in the future, so definitely subscribe if you want to see that. And if you didn't guess already, I am a huge fan of shoot 'em ups, so we're going back to the shoot 'em up genre now for one of my favourite games that was originally released on the Dreamcast back in the 90s. This is Gunbird 2 by Psycho. Definitely Psycho's best game, in my opinion at least. Gunbird 2 is another one of those really addictive vertical scrolling shooters, and now that I've got my rotating monitor arm as well, I've been having an absolute blast playing through some of these vertical scrolling shooters recently. And Gunbird 2 in particular, just like ESP Ra De before it, was always one of those shooters that I would go back to and play again and again and never get bored. It has fantastic music, it has fantastic graphics, and just like ESP Ra De, it also has a lot of variation in the gameplay as well, which is one of the reasons why I love it so much. And it's great to be able to have it on the Switch and play it on the go as well. Now, if there's one company that knows retro ports more than anyone else, that is M2, and they also released a range of incredible Sega ports for the Switch as well, under the Sega Ages collection, and I've picked two to show off in this video. The first one is my favourite 2D Sonic game, Sonic 2. I don't really know what I can say about Sonic 2 that hasn't already been said a million times before, but it is such a huge improvement over the first one. It is so much faster, it introduced Tails, it has such a good variety variety of levels. The music to this day is one of the most catchy video game soundtracks that you will ever hear. The gameplay still holds up incredibly well. It still feels like it could be a modern game today, honestly. It has some of my favourite special stages in the entire series, and the game is just the perfect length for this type of game as well. It doesn't overstay its welcome, it's always throwing new and original ideas at you, and it's the kind of game that you can go back to hundreds of times and never get bored of it. And now from a game from Konami, from another one of the collections on the Switch. This is the Castlevania collection, and there are so many incredible Castlevania games, but my favourite of all, no, it's not Castlevania 4, it's not Rondo of Blood, it's not even Symphony of the Night. My favourite Castlevania game, personally, is the first one on the NES. And I know that might be a strange decision to some people, but the first game on the NES is just so replayable. It's one of the few games that I can probably map the entire game out of my head, just from having played it so many times. It's such a rewarding game. At first, you might start playing it and think that it's really slow and clunky, but honestly, stick with it and you'll find one of the most fulfilling gaming experiences you could possibly have. The music still holds up incredibly well today, and for a NES game, honestly, I think the range of levels, the length of the game, just everything about it is so well polished. Considering this was their first game in the series, I honestly think they got everything right from the very first game. So if you've never played any of the Castlevania games before, definitely start with the first one, but also definitely check out the other games on the collection as well, and the Castlevania Advance collection too. They're all incredible games. I don't know why Symphony of the Night hasn't come out on the Switch yet though. I'm really waiting for that one to show up. Now, because I can't get enough of my shoot 'em ups, I had to include just one more on this list, and this was one that I was really excited to play because the original on the Mega Drive is one of my favourite games ever. This is the arcade version. This is Thunder Force AC. It's slightly different to the Mega Drive game, it sounds a bit different in the soundtrack department, and instead of choosing your levels from the main menu, you actually go through them one by one, just like Thunder Force Spirits, which was Thunder Force 3 for the SNES. So it's kind of a mix of both the Mega Drive and the SNES game in one package, and it is still one of my favourite shooters to this day. The levels are so memorable, probably the most memorable out of any shoot 'em up. Each one has a completely different theme to it, each one has an incredible memorable soundtrack to go along with it, and the gameplay is just so fast and so fun and so rewarding. I love the weapons system in this game, the way you can change between them at will and change the speed of the ship too. It's honestly my favourite game in the Thunder Force series, and probably my favourite game that Technosoft have ever made as well. And something else about this port as well, and something else that I also noticed on a few of the other games, they actually support Rumble with the Pro Controller, and I was really surprised when I first felt this, but it does add an extra layer of immersion to these old games, and it is really cool to see it included. The developers didn't need to do this, but it is a really nice addition. And now for the next game, this is another one from another Konami collection. This is from the Contra collection, and my pick from this is, because I'm from the UK, my pick from this is Super Probotector, Alien Rebels. In turbo mode, of course. Basically that means that you get to play the game at 60 Hz instead of 50, so it plays at the proper speed that you'd want the game to be at. The only difference between Probotector and Contra is the fact that because of weird laws in Europe, you don't actually play as a human, you actually play as a robot instead, and I actually really like that aesthetic. But no matter whether you're playing Contra or Probotector, the game is actually the same no matter which one you choose, and what a game it is. This is definitely my favourite Contra game. The SNES was just such a powerhouse, and it really shows with this release. The effects that are on show, just how fast the game is, which was quite a rarity on the SNES at the time. It just really feels so polished and so fun to play even to this day. I also love the inclusion of the top-down stages as well. I think they're really fun and they do a great job of breaking up the action in between stages. It is a really difficult game though, so stick with this one, give it a chance, and eventually you'll learn the patterns and you'll be able to progress in the game, and you'll get that satisfaction that only retro games can give you. Now for the final 4 games in this video, I actually decided to take one game from each of the Nintendo Switch online membership apps. So let's start with the first game that I chose from the NES app, and that is Solomon's Key. So Solomon's Key on the NES was actually one of the games that I found out about on the Wii's Virtual Console back in the day. I downloaded it the day it came out on the Wii, and I was really surprised by just how much of a fun and interesting game it is, and that is why I've picked it on this list. There's a lot of NES games that are really popular, but I feel like Solomon's Key doesn't get that much love, and I definitely wanted to share my appreciation for such a unique puzzle game on the system. It still holds up really well today. I love the different mechanics. Basically, all you need to do is use your magic wand to either put down or remove blocks, and you can do that to trap enemies, to build yourself stairs or platforms, and all you really have to do is find your way to the exit for each stage. Like I said before in this video, I love these simple single screen style puzzle platformers, and this is definitely a great example. It may not have the speed or the flashiness of an arcade game, but for a NES game it is a really unique experience. And of course it's free to play as well if you've got the membership, so there's no excuse not to give this one a try at least. And next is the SNES online service, and definitely the best game on this collection for me personally is a game that I've talked about many times on the channel in the past, or as it's known on here, Kirby Superstar. Definitely the best game in the entire Kirby series in my opinion. This one is just such a memorable experience from start to finish. It has 8 completely separate kind of Kirby adventures within the main game, and each one of them plays slightly differently from the other. You can either play Spring Breeze, which is basically like the original Game Boy game. There's one called the Great Cave Offensive, where you have to go around this huge open dungeon map and try and find treasure. There's Meta Knight's Revenge, which is a really cool story-driven action-adventure platformer. Milky Way Wishes, where you lose your power-ups and you have to actually find them throughout the stages rather than swallowing the enemies. It is just such a fantastic collection of minigames and bigger experiences as well, all in one package, and it is definitely my favourite Kirby game ever made. And if you're like me and you're really looking forward to the new Kirby game that's coming out on the Switch soon, definitely do yourselves a favour and play this one beforehand. You will not be disappointed. Now for the Mega Drive, and there is such a fantastic selection of games here on the Mega Drive service, but there is one game in particular that I used to love playing on the Virtual Console back in the day, and of course more recently on the Mega Drive itself since I picked up a physical copy, and that is Sega's second best platformer for the system, Ristar. Ristar is a really cool platformer. It's a lot slower paced than the Sonic games, it's more of a puzzle platformer, but some of the mechanics in this game are so fun and so unique even to this day, and it is such a shame that Ristar never got a sequel or a follow-up. I really think he deserves one. Although I'm not really sure whether the Sega of today could actually do it justice. But Ristar, as it stands on its own, is such a unique experience, and it is such a fun game to go back to and play over and over again. Like a lot of the other games that I've mentioned, the level designs are so unique between the different areas in this game, and the music as well is such a standout feature. I really think the music in retro games in general is so important to the overall feel of the games and the way that I remember them as well. And maybe I'll do a podcast episode on the music of retro games in the future as well, but it is definitely something that I really think a lot of when I think of Ristar, is just how good the soundtrack was. And the final game on this list from the N64 collection this time, and it is also the most recent release. In my opinion, this is Rare's best game of all time. It is just the right size and scale for a 3D platformer. I think they went completely overboard with Banjo Tooie, but the original Banjo Kazooie is such a focused experience. It is so unique, there's still nothing else like it really. I love the dual character mechanics. I just love the collect 'em up aspect because the levels are so compact that it is just so fun to go around the different levels and collect all of the different things. The characters in the game are so memorable and so unique in their own right. The music is just outstanding. It really is one of my favourite games ever. I know I say that about a lot of games, but this is really a game that holds a very special place in my heart, and I'm so glad that a new generation of people are going to get to experience it thanks to the Nintendo Switch. So that was 15 incredible retro games on the Switch. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of my selections. Of course, also let me know what your favourite retro games on the Switch are. I've also just started a podcast as well, so check the link in the description, and once a week I'll go into a really interesting topic on retro gaming. If you want to see more of my top games lists, check the playlist that's on the screen over here, and I'll see you all very soon for the next episode. Goodbye!